Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Before I introduce you to our guest, a dear friend, here's a quote I picked for this episode. The only thing that will redeem mankind is cooperation. Bertrand Russell. Our guest, Robert Frehafer, founder of Guardian Home Improvements, season 10, episode 117. Robert is the Guardian. Check out that episode 117 in the Culture Matters podcast. How are you, Robert?
I'm doing well, Jay. How are you?
Better than good, better than most. I'm excited to see. I saw pictures of you recently with your people, and it looked like something special was happening. Your people, as in those that work with you every day in the trenches, helping families. What was that experience like? Why do you gather with your people? And what are some of the things that come from that? What would your advice be to the audience around this topic? And the reason I'm asking this is I've repeated it and repeated and repeated in recent episodes. It's a weird time. Some are doing amazing, some aren't. We're being told ships are imploding, interest rates are up. So my question is, what were those pictures about? And so what came from that gathering, and why would we gather? Yeah. So I have lots of questions.
Yeah, so I have a few of them that you wrote. What were the pictures? Why? And any advice for others? But you were just dropping a couple more questions on there.
Let's start with those three.
What came from the gathering? So there's a few you're hitting me with. You got the quote up here that you started out with. The only thing that can redeem mankind is cooperation. Is that what it is?
Yes, Bertrand Russell.
Very interesting. So the pictures. And I have to say this too. You know, you introduced me as the owner or founder of Guardian Home Improvements, and we are officially Guardian Roofing and Siding for the last few years. So that being said, it's important because it is part of the story, right? And what we do and how we do it. Originally, when the company was founded, home improvements made sense to me, even though we really only did roofing and siding primarily. I wanted to use the name home improvements because it would lead to more open and opportunity to do more things in the future. But as time went on and we narrowed down, we don't want to do any other home improvements because we're not set up, we're not outfitted for it, we're not prepared, we don't have the manpower, everything of it, everything set up. So we really decided to hone in on what we do. And then we changed the name. It's the same business. It was just a name change from Guardian Home Improvements to Guardian Roofing and Siding. So just wanted to provide a little bit of clarity on that. So thank you, though, for the introduction.
Yeah, it's not like we've known each other for years. Okay. Oh, I greatly thank you. You're just that's a very helpful explanation, and I apologize for having a mind stroke there for a second, but
apology accepted. So moving on, the questions of the pictures. That was the 5th quarterly goals meeting that Guardian Roofing and Siding has put on, that we've been involved with the team, with the Guardians. So it's really a great experience for me. In the first few were very nerve-wracking for me, just for preparation. It was unknown, it was new territory. And, I would not even want to, I would not want to miss the opportunity to really give credit where credit is due. This is something that was really motivated through all of our meetings, Jay, you and I, through continual meetings for year after year, and you would bring to me from all the things that you read, understand, and do, that you were bringing to me as I was successful in what I did, but but you brought new information to me that I could utilize. And one of the things that you brought, which was, some of these things are very basic, sentiments, but the action and activity of discipline, writing goals down, meeting regularly to talk about them, understanding our counterpart, right? So in this scenario, it's the guardians or the sales representatives for Guardian Roofing and Siding, and then putting together the small weekly, monthly, daily disciplines that are necessary to go ahead and get the goals done, right? And write them down and have accountability on those things. It's helpful as a business owner. So this gets into the why a little bit and what's taken out of it. But all that being said, so what you see there is the pictures. It's on my home property. We call it the pool house. It was an open gazebo that we finished over the last few years and made it so it's a nice place to meet. It's something that for me, it's a preparation. There was a level of commitment in the very first, when you first started introducing me to that type of a medium with the guardians, that I needed to utilize the space not needed to, let me rephrase that. I had an opportunity to utilize the space that I have, the home that I have, the land, the parking, the whole entire atmosphere just changes everything up. Inviting the guardians to my house, setting up the pool house to receive a meeting. My wife has been very helpful in every one of these things. She cooks food the morning of, prepares things, goes shopping for the stuff that we need for supplies. So it is something that we work together. I remember the very first one that I had of writing out all of the things that were necessary months beforehand to give to the guardians so they can work through what their values are, their goals, teaching them how to even make a goal. Now, some of them have been doing it for decades and others had never written a goal ever in their life.
Wow.
So two different extremes of people, or levels of experience that, for me, there was a bit of pressure, right? So just the commitment, showing up, doing these things. Am I going to fail, right? That's my own insecurities. Do I have something of value to bring to this meeting? So after now, and to me, when I say it, after 5 quarterly meetings, that sounds like a very small number, but that short amount of discipline and meetings going on a year and a quarter, basically there has been monumental changes that are going on, especially, that meeting, that the room was full, right? There's more room to accept more guardians in the room, but it was full, and not only of humans, right? It was full of emotion. It was full of stories. It was full of men that, and I say it like that, at this point, there's not just not a female guardian. I would love to have that. If there was a woman that wanted to represent the brand and go out and sell roofing and siding and help homeowners, that would be great. But at this meeting so far, there were only men there, and men that they shared what's going on in their lives and how things have changed in just such short amount of time, in a year and a quarter, or their story of getting introduced to Guardian and what's going on in their lives. So all that being said, that's what the pictures were. So it was a special quarterly meeting for me. One, because of the volume of the people that were there. I brought in for the first portion of the meeting, the first 30 minutes, actually before the meeting was 11 till 2. And from 10:30 till 11, for those that were interested, I brought in a solar professional that's been managing and owning a solar company, and that we're going to work together as referral partners, that if anybody was interested, they could come early and they could listen and understand that. So but it was really impactful for me, because there's a lot of really positive things that have been going on, highest grossing first quarter of the year.
Wow.
Sales reps, guardians that are hitting, $500,000 in gross sales in the first half of the year. Another one just hit 1 million for the year. And so not only is it that the actions are happening, it's that the lives are being impacted, the way that the company is recognizing the goals that they've set, how they get there, and then on top of it, going out to a really awesome place to eat afterwards. So in celebration and continual of culture, the community getting together. And so we went out to a real nice steak place, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse over in Princeton. Went there one time and I was like, this is awesome. I was excited to make the meeting, end in that regard, in that way, out there. So really the why is because it is, having a quarterly goals meeting is very impactful for the culture, for community, to bring the guys together. It also is important as a leader of the company. I need to understand what the Guardians' plans are. What are they accountable to do? What are they going to sell this year? And then we need to compare that with what do we need to do? What do we need to lead to do? So the why is all those things. It's the right thing to do. I wasn't aware in the past. I was actually very apprehensive of meetings of this type, but listening to you, listening to your counsel, trusting it and trying it through the uncomfortable things, it has been proving very rewarding, personally, business wise, financially, like in all areas. It is impacting guys a lot, the Guardians' lives. And so that being said, that's it. And the advice for anybody to answer that question would be, take the time to organize something, provide value. It doesn't need to be a super long meeting. Prepare your staff for, or however your team is built, for what the meeting is, what they're going to do, what you're going to talk about. And if you're nervous or uncomfortable, power through, right? Do the work, write it down, show up, be prepared, and do it, right? Do the things that you do. So I'm saying that from my perspective right now, that's to somebody that's doing nothing, right? And take it from somebody that was doing nothing in a very short amount of time. With these actions and disciplines, there can be some large changes. So that's my real short answer to that question.
Well, to the prodigious memory you have, because there's like 5 questions, you answered all of them. Amazing. So what were you uncomfortable of, and what do you think people in positions of ownership could be uncomfortable of when it comes to bringing everyone together towards something? What were you uncomfortable of? Because you brought that up. That's interesting. I'm thinking like.
So the very first and easy way to answer that question is, well, I was uncomfortable that it's a commitment, right? I have to make commitments. I have a lot of things going on. So for me, it does make me uncomfortable. I have a lot of volume of responsibilities. So literally making the commitment makes me uncomfortable, as well as I actually care about the meeting and what goes on. So I know that there's going to be work that goes on before it. It's not really just what's scheduled that day. It's all the work that goes on before to prepare. I also know from track record, I'm not the best at preparing, right? So I'll wait till the last minute. And this is such a big thing that it creates even more pressure for me. Like, that's an easy way to answer, what makes it uncomfortable. A little bit, to dive a little bit deeper and try to, do the best I can to attempt to have a totally authentic conversation. I think part of me, it's uncomfortable. It's because I don't even know if I can provide value, right? Like, that's the insecurity in me that will say, like, what are you going to provide? Like, you just do what you do. This is by luck that all this has happened, right? or like, so that's uncomfortable, right? Can I really provide value? Because have I just been faking it my whole life, right? Just preparing last minute, showing up, and by some chance it all works out with enough charisma and enough, ability to bullcrap people. That's my insecurity. That's not truth, right? Like, and there's actually, let me rephrase that. There's a little bit of that to me, right? And that's coming from really, again, Jay, you've talked about that. Everybody has to do something for the first time, right? Like you have to have a little bit of that courageousness, the ability to go in and act as if nobody's done the first roofing job until they've done the first roofing job. Nobody's, anyway, nobody's hired somebody until they've hired somebody. And to act as if you have all the information and everything beforehand, I think that would be, it's not my experience anyway. So number one, I think the deeper insecurity that rises up of why I'd be uncomfortable to have that is my own self-doubt, right? Like, can I even do anything good? I'm not even good at writing my own goals down. I don't like to commit to things. So how could I possibly impact or influence somebody else in this positive way? You know better than anybody else as my advisor that you've told me so many times, like you jump in, you work like crazy, then you go back, you go this direction, then you go that direction. So knowing who I am and actually having this awareness with working with you over some years now, what right do I have to even try to teach somebody about these things? But that's like old thinking, right? Like that's because the what I have done is I have showed up. I have enacted discipline for years. I have made changes in the areas of like not jumping in, jumping out. I have proven to myself and to other people, and it's still going on, right? Meaning I've been late so many times. I've said things I was going to do that I didn't do. I shared externally like, oh, these are my ideas. I think I'm going to do this. And I changed direction. I've done that for so many years in the past that it's taken a bit of work to like reframe who I am to the people that are the closest to me because they've experienced this for so long. So that's another reason why it's hard for me to say, it was uncomfortable to say like, all right, let's have these goals meetings and actually enact it and do it. So that's a little bit of a deeper answer. Even more to go into some depth of uncomfortable things. A lot of times let me rephrase that. A lot of the relationships that I had in the company, there's been a transformation of I'm shifting gears. There's been a transformation of the culture of the company, from the people that were here and then moved on since we've been working together, since changes have been going on. People that have moved on, people that have then changed, or people that are still in the organization, but they're not as close to me and to the cultural changes as others that have adapted or changed some of their habits and actions and attitudes. So I don't know if that's exactly making sense, but if I could dial that down to make sure that somebody's understanding what I'm saying is there's new hires that have come in and they're like adopting this new culture. There's old hires that have been with the company that are now they are moving towards adopting these new cultures. And then there are old hires that have not adopted the new cultures, and some of them have gone. And others are still here, but they're like on the fringe of the culture. So that being said, that part makes me a little uncomfortable because, and not so much like, oh, this person's going to impact that person, but more of like, if I could say it the best way I can, they're all like a representation of me. Now, that's not inflating my ego and saying like, oh, I'm so awesome. If I'm accepting somebody into this company to represent the brand that is built by me, I was the founder, the visionary, and accepting these personalities or traits that are going on. And some of the things that I've accepted in the past, I could recall it like, oh, like the way that somebody would talk or announce themselves or do these different things, like carry themselves. It would make my stomach turn sometimes like, oh, that's different, right? But not confront it, not have the conflict, not teach, not share my view on it as the leader, right? And that's where my role is. So with that in the past, it's created an atmosphere like, oh, this is okay, right? To do whatever you want and however you want, which was actually tearing apart the original culture, or I was unclear on it originally. And now that it's more clear and I am stepping up and handling conflict, navigating it, teaching about what the culture is, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like through examples when the conflicts come up. So you have there's that insecurity on my end, bringing the people together in those first meetings. That's what was really, really comfortable for me. Like, man, like, how's this person going to act? How are these things going to go? Is it going to be that same old feeling where they say something, I don't address it? It's not really the right medium to call somebody out right in the middle of this meeting where there's all the people there. So there's all those things that come up where these guardians are a representation of me, because this is what I allow and this is what goes on. And I really don't live in a way or run the company in a way where we act one way to the homeowner and then one way to the office staff and then one way to each other when we're out there having a meal or this or that. Like, because this mindset, or the word that I've learned from you, which is being authentic, right? Like, and in alignment, that's what that means to me, right? Like, I'm the same, or I have integrity, which is the same thing, not changing, no matter where I'm at or who I'm around or what the medium is. So that was another one that's very uncomfortable, right? That was very uncomfortable for me. And seeing how the meetings have progressed and seeing the people come in and seeing how my level of confidence based off of the experience, right? Like, so that has changed, but those were the things that come to mind right now of what was really uncomfortable for me in preparing these meetings.
Is there a worry, or could there have been a worry that people wouldn't get along
Originally? Or, well, let me think. I can't say that
or is it show, or like if someone does or says something that maybe feeling not the way that it represents at some level who you are to others.
Could you say that first part again? Something the way, what did you say?
I'll give you an example. Let's say I get a bunch of people together that I've had the opportunity to serve. And I'm thinking, well, then they might just spend the whole time thinking, oh, well, look at this person. They're not that great. And then that makes me look bad. I'm too attached to my relationship with both and how it shows me. I was just thinking about this the other day, actually. I was like, so yeah, what do you think about that? Is that kind of part of it?
So in the beginning,
the self-glorification piece?
In the beginning, it was even more of that. I think I understand exactly what you're saying right now. And
like, if person A and person B are in a room and they have this relationship with me, and their relationship with each other is
opposing.
Opaque is
it's opposing. So there's some level of you're in alignment with the two of them in different direction, a different way, but they're in opposition because they have different views of things, which I may tolerate a certain amount from one person or the other,
and they interpret me differently.
And so ultimately, yes, so when you say it that way, and I think I understand what you're saying, is that I've felt that responsibility for what the other person is doing or saying, right? So that's how I would tie it. And that it is gonna then be a reflection of me because I've accepted them into the organization. I don't confront that or navigate those things. Now, again, like I say it, I want to be clear. I'm saying like, oh, there's me, I'm the founder and the leader, and everybody's a representation of me. Well, we're all individuals, right? So thank God that that's the way that it is. So now I don't own them. They're not my property. They are who they are. And I think that was a little bit of a healthier view that's been growing as I deal and navigate conflict and relationships with people, is I don't own their actions and attitudes. I really don't own it. I don't have to take then responsibility for it. So if they say something that makes somebody else uncomfortable, it really comes down to a little bit of like being okay with being okay with myself to allow them to expose themselves, and then giving somebody else the opportunity to confront them, because that's the beautiful part of this culture now. And another meaningful thing in this last meeting, the last two meetings, really, it started the last, not this one that just occurred, but the one prior, where I intentionally, I asked other, like, we would go around and we would talk about our goals individually, and then as each person would share, I would solicit the other guardians to say, what did you hear? What did you hear them say? What thoughts do you have for them? What feedback do you have? Because they all have it, they know it, and we can hear, like, when I talk, I don't hear the same. So when you're talking, I can hear what you're saying better, if that makes sense. So that soliciting started. It wasn't just me. It wasn't like, oh, Bob's going to tell everybody what he thinks and what he should do.
Oh, so that's not how you've been running them.
No. So now the last few have been, the guardians are running the guardian, like they're seeing and hearing. So I give them the opportunity to go first, and then I'll add and I'll ask. I usually ask a lot of questions more than add. I will add at certain times.
How do you go about asking questions in a group setting that way? What are some things that you've learned that are less effective? And then what a bit, if any, and then the opposite of that, what has been effective? If you're giving counsel to someone listening to this who is in, the CEO seat and wants to gather their people and have it be effective.
So that's a great question. For me, it's very important that I'm authentic, right? Because if I already, this has been a challenge, not a challenge. This was a skill. This was what I thought was an asset, and I utilized it for decades. I already formed a decision in my mind of what I'm going into me past, right? Past life me. I formed a decision of what somebody's thinking. I already know what's best for them based off of what I formed. And I'm going to just ask them leading questions so they can get to the same mindset that I have. That's a problem, because that's real. I might as well just tell them, that's what I found. Now I will ask them, are you okay if I share with you what I'm thinking? And then I'll tell them, I think that what I hear you say is this, this, and this. So I would recommend that you maybe consider this. Am I hearing you the right way? Is that what you mean? Is that how it is? So that I could say all that stuff and then ask them, am I hearing that? What am I understanding you right? But when you go back to the original question that you just asked me, any recommendation for asking questions? Really ask the questions that you want to understand more, because so many times like I just explained, I think I know what somebody's thinking, feeling, their intentions, why their motivation to say and think and feel these things are. Like, who am I? Now, I'm intuitive. I'm very intuitive, and this is a gift that I do have, but unfortunately I'm not omniscient, right? Or omnipotent, whatever the word is. I don't know everything, and I'm not everywhere, right? So I have to still even ask because my intuition isn't always right. So asking those questions, and recommendation for how to ask questions: tone, right? Consider the medium and the room and where you're at. The way that the question is going to impact the receiver. Is it a question that's appropriate to ask in front of a bunch of other people? Sometimes you write it down and you ask it later, right? You do it because that is the process of what we do. After the group meeting, then there's individual meetings that I have with each rep, and we hone that down a little bit, and then we apply it. We create the disciplines on a regular basis. I ask for I ask them, do they want accountability with me? So I ask for permission to hold them accountable. They decide the plan, and I give my input of what it is. If they're way off course, I'll let them know what processes it's actually going to take to be successful. And I can talk about guardian activities for sure. And I have some experience in other things that I can offer, but mostly that portion is about the guardian activities. So really the way you ask a question, just really ask from a true, ask to really understand. If you're asking to understand, so you can know the person better in an effort to care, then I think you're on the right path. If you're asking because you want to be the know-it-all and you already have this thing planned out and you want to show everybody that you got the answer, when I say this, I'm not trying to be judgmental. These are things that I've done in the past, right? And I'm not even trying to separate myself that far from myself. I could do that right this minute, catch me at the right time and whatever else. And it's exciting. It's impressive when to others, I feel value, my ego gets filled up when I can be right, because it's still an impactful thing to help somebody solve problems. So that's some advice for asking.
How does somebody ask the question they don't care? How does somebody ask a question when they don't care?
Are you
Like,
asking
how
me
does
like
someone do
what I've
maybe I'm
seen?
not- can somebody, what about the people that genuinely, just they don't want to know. They just want to get an outcome. What's your advice to them? Or thought around that? Like maybe they genuinely don't care what their people think. They have very little interest in that. It's more of like, why aren't you doing what you need to do? Why are you even here outside of the need or my own fear of what could happen if I didn't have you?
Are you referencing the CEO at this or manager at this position?
Yeah, I don't, maybe everyone can relate to this at some level. I'm like, how do I care about somebody when I don't care?
Well, when you asked a question, that's how I was going to reframe it, because you asked me like, what about somebody that doesn't care? And how do you think I wanted to really just bring it back to me, right? Because that's anything else would be subjective and my projected view of someone else and judgmental view of someone else. But I would try to bring it back to me. And I'm not all the way there in my mind, but I'm trying to imagine myself in a situation where I'm looking, like you said, the one thing you brought up was I want an outcome done, and I really don't care how we get there, and I don't care about the person. I don't care to know what's going on. It sounds like that's what you're saying as a question. Am I hearing you right? Like that's the question you have for me.
Yeah, like, I guess maybe can someone benefit from this advice if they don't care? I don't know. I'm not sure. That's why I'm at, like, I've been trying to figure this out generally. Like, is this helpful counsel to someone that is not in a state of actually being interested in other people?
So now
maybe
you
it's actually
have my
unhelpful advice.
Now you have my brain on a different thought pattern with that, because ultimately your judgment of that person, right? If you're conditioned, you're like considering this person, you're putting them into this box that they're in this role, but they really don't care. That might not be the truth. It may be perceived by you that they don't care because they don't communicate in the same way that you do. That's a big thing that I've been finding, is that some people have different personalities. Like there's people that are within the company that are really about like logistics, right? What happened? What was this? Who did this? Okay, get this done. Where me, I'm going to be about emotion. Oh, what impacted you there? I want to understand all the parameters. Did you have a bad day? Blah, blah, blah. Where the other person, it doesn't mean that they don't care, but they just don't communicate. Their emotional connection to something in a work environment, right, is going to be different. They really aren't, and to use your term, their value is not going to be made or broken by the person's desire or heart or feelings or past history or future goals, where that's the stuff that like really fills me up, right? Like, what are you doing? What's going on? What's your why? where somebody else is going to be very, well, what do you got to do? You just have to knock on 50 doors a day and then meet these clients and call these claims in and do this thing. Now it's just a different way to communicate. That's how they potentially show care for the other person, holding them accountable. So now, are there people that are going to come in? Let's talk about me again. Is there a time when I'm going to be so self-centered that I don't really have a desire to know my counterpart? I don't have a desire to know the things that are personally going on with them. I don't have a desire to know these things. I just want to go through the steps and the motions to have them produce. I can't even say it, dude, because it goes totally against who I am, right? But it takes multiple kinds to make things work. So I go back to the original question, which was like, would this be useful information for somebody that doesn't care? It's tough for me to imagine somebody to be in the position of leadership and not caring, because this is my world. This is my paradigm. This is what I've seen. I haven't been exposed. I didn't, you know me, I didn't go to like 4, 6, 8 years of college. I haven't sat in, boardrooms at whatever, Fortune 500, publicly traded places. I only know what I know. And for me, it's relationships. That's what it's been since day one. I've been working with my family, working with friends, people that I meet. I care about every person. It's my personality, right? It's the way God has made me. So it's hard for me. I think it's hard for me to answer that question, because I think I see people that I would judge them that they don't seem to care. But man, that just puts me right back into a place. Like, I don't know them. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what's going on in their home. I don't know what they grew up in. I don't know what type of environment it is, good or bad. I don't know. And maybe there's a huge amount of healthiness to that I just don't know yet. Right. Like, so
how do you approach them? What's your advice to the listener?
Well, that's a great question. It depends on who they are and what proximity to me, how close they are to me. One of the things is if they're even open to being approached or talking about any of that type of stuff. Generally with somebody that I would deem as less emotional connection, less relational, just about the business, I would mirror them a little. I do mirror them a little bit. I mirror them. And with not losing my own authenticity, and I'll share a little bit, or I'll ask them. Now I do something like that. I ask them, do you want to talk about that? Would you like me to share about these things? Literally to the point, like asking people that I've known for a long time that have intuitively, like I've figured out, like, they don't really like hugs, or they don't like this. It's like, hey, do you not like hugs? Because I won't give it to you if you don't like it, right? Like, so I'll ask. And then I will allow them to be where they are. And I will hope that God will utilize me in a way that will be impactful to that person, if it's even something that's necessary in their lives.
My final question in this part 1 of 8 parts. You got 5 minutes. What's your, I just opened my door, I don't know you, and you're saying, hey, well, the first thing you're saying without saying it is what's around your neck. So like, and you just mentioned, the big G, as I just randomly, and now I'm calling them right now, the moment. So like, why is that important? Yeah, and remember, now you got 4 minutes and 30 seconds, because it's taking me 30 seconds to ask this question. So I just open my door and I see what's around your neck. We have a cross, and you mentioned the big G. So my question in 4 minutes now is why? Why is that important to you? And what's your message to the listener?
So why is God important to me? And why do I wear the symbols? Why do I use the language? Why do I live the way that I live? Yeah. So, my 4 minute 4 minutes is plenty of time. It's changed my life, my relationship and understanding and knowledge of the Creator God, and the way that He's impacted my life through Jesus Christ, His Son that was here on earth, and the way that He intervenes into my heart and my mind through His Holy Spirit. So that's an opportunity to have the living God inside of me and impacting me, guiding me, convicting me, like making me feel bad about something that's wrong, teaching me. It has been such a major impact in my life, from drugs, alcohol, sex, stealing, all the broken 10 commandments that I've lived in and under for so much, and I was attracted to the total other side of, wanting and desiring to live a righteous life before the Lord. And so it's impacted me. That's the first answer of why. It's impacted me so much that I want to share it with others. I want to share it with others through the cross that I wear around my neck. That's a reminder for me. That's an outward symbol to others of my faith. Now, today, in these days, it could be anything. Somebody could throw a cross on and it's nothing. But for me, it is what it is. My word and action is very important. I look at the why is that I am a disciple. So I'm under the discipline of a Christian or a biblical belief. So that is, and the reason for that is that, and here's the deepest part of the why in my last, 180 seconds, I'll just extend it to 3 minutes somehow. So the deepest part is that the why, Jay, is that it's exciting, right? My life is exciting. I have a meaning and purpose here in the life, in this world, to share this good news. And the good news is that God loves every single one of us. He wants to have a relationship with us. He's done it through His Son for those that have faith in Jesus Christ and confess their sins, repent from them, and cry out to Him for salvation, and just believe that He took all the punishment for us on the cross. It's as simple as that we then get the opportunity to have fellowship and communion with God today while we're alive and walking this earth. We have purpose and meaning, but we have that Holy Spirit that I talk about, that I get, it's like a promise, it's a seal. And it's hard to put a word to a feeling, and I could probably expound on that a little, of what the future is to come in eternity. We're the biggest reason of why, to boil it down, is because every single one of us humans is sinful, separated from God, and on a path to destruction and complete eternal separation from God. And somebody's got to get the message out there. That's the why, right? Like, because if not, he could make it over right now. The believers go home and it's over, but we still have a job to do. I have meaning, purpose. I want to share this great news with those that are closed-minded. They're unaware. They don't even think that. Just imagine, nobody will understand this, I don't think, as more as that you will. You understand that culture matters. You see all these people that are walking around, just from a cultural standpoint, that people are walking around, living life, running businesses. You have a reason why you get up, why you want to do, 180 podcasts in the next however many months. Like, you have a reason. It's because you have a message that you believe is going to impact other people's lives, and it's also beneficial for you at the same time, and you want to help. And that's the why. But from my view, it's eternal separation and forever, right? Like, for eternity. So that's a pretty big why. But it's one step at a time, one day at a time. And I'll wrap that up with this, is that, like, you sent me that video this morning. I watched the whole thing. I recorded a couple things, like screen shared it. I'll send it back over to you. But man, the whole time he kept twining reason, purpose, values, mission, jobs, all these different things through these biblical contexts. And I was like, yeah. Now, a lot of times he philosophizes about certain things, or I don't know the right word, but like, he'll use it what something that I would look at as as a as an example of something that actually happened. He talked about the angel with the swords flaming to protect, which I'd look at that. That was a real thing. And then he makes it like a metaphor, right? He talks about how the sword is used to do this, 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 and this. So, which I get concerned when I hear that it almost devalues what actually happened. I think it could be both, though. I think it can be a metaphor and it can be an actuality of what went on. So, all that being said, does that answer your question?
Yeah, when you're referencing the Larry Arnn show, Jordan Peterson conversation. Shout
Yes.
out to that. I think more people listen to that. It was a good hour summation of a lot of.
Yeah, that was a great one. That was really great. I loved it. I loved, all of his. There's so many things, and I want to be sensitive to the time, but we could talk about a couple of the topics that were in there. I'm sure I'd love to. But yeah, so that's the why. There's meaning here today. There's eternal meaning. It's for me, what more of a noble cause than to go out and share this with people, knowing, like the word says, that it's not going to be received well, but I'm here to testify that there's plenty of people that have received it. And if my impact here on this world, right, if what I believe is true, that there's an eternal place that I'm going to be without any more death, no more sin, no more sickness, if that's going to be the truth, and I am gifted with that bit of information, I better go tell people, right? Like, I better go utilize it. More than that, I get to live out my faith through my relationship with my wife, with you, with my children, with the people around me, the business, through the clients that we work with, through social media, even in a world where you're not supposed to do that, right? Like, by the masses. So that's something that, that's pretty exciting. That's the exciting part for me. It's like I'm literally in this war right now for people's souls, for eternity. So that's great. That's the why.